I wouldn't really say that we get phone level performance in a MacBook. Rather, beforehand, we've had MacBook level performance in a phone. So this is the new MacBook Neo. I am quite excited for this. It's only 600 bucks. So cheap, and it is surprisingly capable. Let's have a look. I've had it for about 2 days. I absolutely love the color. It kind of matches my phone, but not quite. It's like they saw the indigo blue on the iPhone and they were like, yeah, we can't make it the exact same because the Neo isn't premium enough. Now you see, the Neo gives you a lot more than you would think you would get for this price point. But there's also a lot of limitations that I didn't even think would be there until I tried it out. With that said, this is more of a filmmaker's review of the MacBook Neo. It is not a complete review. There's a lot of other channels that do this a lot better than I can do it. So with that said, let's just head straight into DaVinci Resolve and check out what's what. Opening DaVinci is as quick as you would expect, but there is one small issue. You see, the Neo doesn't really get all that much storage space. And while 256 gigabytes maybe sounds like a lot, usually the SD cards you put into your camera are that size. So 512 gigabytes won't really get you anywhere. I'm gonna plug in an example project I have that is around 1.2 terabytes, which is currently why we have a lot of media offline right there on the screen. You simply cannot keep all of the footage you would normally shoot in a professional setting on this computer. Instead, you do have to use an external SSD, which I have right here. So before I plug in the SSD, let me tell you why it's maybe not the most optimum Apple Mac you can get. And that is because you only have one USB 3 port. So the USB-C port that is closest to the screen is a USB 3. The port underneath it, it's... Oh, who the fuck is calling me right now? Ja, tjena. Halloj, halloj. Okay, so that is kind of crazy. It's currently 9:11 at night here up in northern Sweden. And I literally just got a package delivered at 9 o'clock at night. Mind you, it's only a Wednesday, but still, that's dedication from the guys working. So the topmost USB port, that is a USB 3, and the bottom port is USB 2. Now the USB 2 port is roughly 1/2 gigabit per second, and the top port gets you 5 gigabit per second, not even 10 gigabit per second. And if that wasn't enough, the top port is also your DisplayPort port and your HDMI port. So if you would like to connect this computer to a display and have external storage, which you absolutely need to use this as a filmmaker's computer, you're kind of out of luck. And with that said, the screen that does come with the MacBook Neo is great. For SDR purposes, it's 100% color accurate. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just it's a bit small, and I really prefer working with my neck like this instead of down here like this. So I really prefer having an external screen. And with the MacBook, it's not really possible if you also want drives, which you really do. You can probably connect the Neo to a USB 3 hub, but I'm not sure. I only have Thunderbolt hubs. That, of course, didn't work. I'm not really mad about that. So if you need an external screen, this maybe isn't really the computer for you, which means it's not a computer for me. Now let's talk a little bit more broadly about how it is editing on the MacBook Neo. It is alright, for sure. The timeline performance is great. I have a lot of effects going on right here. I have a lot of noise reduction because I'm shooting in RAW. And I have a lot of RAW files, which is usually quite tough to decode. The A18 chip inside of the MacBook Neo can handle it. But I do notice it does slow down a fair bit. Like, for example, here I have a lot of noise reduction going on. And the playback says that it's at 25 frames, but it's more like 4 frames per second. Now, this only applies to raw clips where basically the GPU performance inside of the MacBook Neo, those 5 cores, they cannot keep up. They have to debayer the raw data and they have to apply noise reduction, and it's simply too much for it. If I turn off all effects, so there's no color grading, there's no noise reduction, it does just barely play back at 20 FPS. So it cannot do 25 FPS. This was shot at 6K Red RAW. There are solutions to this, however. It's not the end of the world. So the first solution I would do is I would reduce the debayer quality. You go into the camera RAW tab on the project settings, then we have to go into red. And here we can choose the decode quality. So if we reduce this to 1/8 resolution, which is totally fine for actually just decoding and looking at the data. And there we go. It's playing back absolutely fine, and on such a small screen, especially if you're not color grading it, doesn't really matter. And I think if I apply my grade here, it should actually play it back in real time. It does not. Basically noise reduction, that's a killer on this machine. So real-time playback with noise reduction, that is actually quite tough for most machines. But we're so spoiled nowadays, so with the modern M-series silicon chips, you can usually actually just play back at normal speed when you have noise reduction on. On the MacBook Neo, you cannot do that. It's not the end of the world. But as you can see, effects off, we can play back footage, scrolling is reasonably quick. It's not the most responsive timeline I've ever seen, but it's absolutely usable. I could for sure edit in this and I wouldn't really be that bothered by it. One notable thing is that we have hardware decoding inside of the A18 chip, which is absolutely fabulous. So we get H.264, we get HEVC, we get AV1, and we get ProRes, all of that smacked into the chip. That means if you use a camera that has any of those file options, you're gonna have a lot smoother performance than I'm having right now in the red RAW files. So if I go to this clip, for example, this is shot at HEVC, it's a lot smoother. You can really tell that hardware acceleration is the future. And I'm so happy that Apple actually chose to include this. That means for your standard Canon, Sony, Nikon mirrorless formats, you're gonna have a grand time editing on this machine. And if you ever get a project thrown at you where you have to use some red RAW or maybe some Blackmagic RAW, Canon RAW, whatever RAW format you're using, it does have the horsepower to handle it, but with some limitations that you don't really have on modern chips. But just looking back 5, 6, maybe 8 years ago, then you basically get the same limitations we had back then, just right now. Let's be a bit mean to the machine and actually try and push it inside DaVinci Resolve. So you and me being quite normal editors, we probably don't do that much VFX, and I think the most VFX heavy thing you do is probably masking and pulling. Now luckily, with DaVinci Resolve we do get the AI magic mask, which actually works shockingly good, I do have to say. So we're gonna select better, because of course, and we're gonna mask me out. So you just give it a couple of blue dots, and then we wait for a bit. I know for a fact my M4 Max tracks at roughly 12 to 15 FPS. This one seems to track at 0 FPS. So yeah, less than 1. To the shock of no one, it is not a fast machine, but it is actually doing it. It's not protesting, it's not saying I'm too slow, I cannot do it. It's just saying, okay, hang on, just go grab yourself a cup of coffee. I'll get this ready as soon as I can. It seems like it's gonna be about 5 minutes, so that is quite far away from 15 FPS. It seems like we have 0.5, but it's doing it. It's absolutely doing it, you little champion. So while this is tracking, let's talk about this amazing screen. Now, it maybe only has 500 nits, but 500 nits is a lot. Like, you cannot use it outside in bright sunlight, but if you're in the shade, if it's a cloudy day, it's absolutely usable. When it comes to SDR content, it does follow 100% of the SDR color space, which means it is 100% color accurate for when you're delivering in Rec. 709. Now, unless you're a colorist, you're most probably going to be delivering in Rec. 709. If you would deliver in any other color space, you probably wouldn't even look at this machine, and you probably would be grading on a professional Flanders monitor. This means the display is more than good enough. Now, the viewing angles isn't really that great. It's really good, it's absolutely amazing. Like, I would never be in a position where I cannot see the screen clearly. But it's not MacBook Pro levels. But it is still good enough to the point that the viewing angle doesn't really matter. It's good enough. When it comes to the power budget on this thing, it seems to be able to pull up to 15 watts, but it quickly overheats. So the long-term sustained load seems to be between 6 to 7 watts before the actual CPU and the GPU hit the TJ max, which is 106 degrees Celsius, 250-ish degrees Fahrenheit. It's really, really warm. The thing is, I saw some other YouTubers disassembling the Neo, and it seems like the chip is basically insulated inside of there. So it's going to get really hot, but on the other hand, I can feel a small amount of warmth underneath here. I would guesstimate the body is around 35 degrees. Like, it's still cool to the touch, it's just a little bit less cool compared to the edges. This means this poor PC, when you're actually editing, it usually can handle it because you're kind of editing in short bursts. You cut there, you move that, it's always peaking and then going down. When you're rendering, this poor Neo is sitting at 106 degrees constantly. Now, 106 degrees is not good for silicon, and I wouldn't expect this to survive all that long if all you do all day, every day is just edit and render. However, if you do one render a week, or maybe one render every 2 weeks, or maybe even 3 renders a week, and each of the renders takes 1 hour. That's not really going to affect the lifespan of the Neo. However, if it's pegged 24/7 at 106 degrees, I estimate it's gonna break in like 2 years. I do feel like the A18 chip inside of here is kind of mismatched. You see, the CPU is really quick. When it comes to single core, it's kind of fighting with the best of the best when it comes to the CPUs. And it has 6 cores, 2 efficiency, 4 performance, so it is really quick. But the GPU, it's not even in the same league. It's far and away so much slower. I have actually seen people play Cyberpunk 2077 on this machine, which is absolutely amazing. Although on the lower settings with a lot of upscaling, so maybe it's not that impressive, but it runs it, absolutely. It's just when it comes to video editing, I do notice that the CPU is chilling at around 20%, and the GPU is like slammed at 100% constantly. That poor boy is working overtime, let me tell you that. Okay, so our magic mask is done. It plays back perfectly. I can see the mask. Seems to be absolutely fine. I really appreciate that, actually. The magic mask did absolutely perfect, it's just it took a long time. So if you have patience, you can absolutely edit on this machine. While testing the battery life, I found something really interesting. Because the MacBook Neo uses so little power, it doesn't really matter what you do when it's pushed to 100%, it will always last for around 3 hours. As you can see here, we got 2 hours and 58 minutes. Speaking of the speakers, haha, pun intended. I wouldn't really mix on them. They are good enough, but they don't seem to have such a balanced sound. And honestly, MacBooks usually don't ever have balanced sound. They're kind of bass heavy. I would really recommend that you put in a pair of headphones into the 3.5mm port. Or maybe use a pair of AirPods. Doesn't really matter all that much. Point is, the sound is okay. You can absolutely use it for a movie, for YouTube. For audio mixing for professionals, doesn't really quite live up all the way. Performance notes aside, it really does give you some perspective as to how quick the chip is inside of our iPhones. Like, this computer is so fast, like it's basically an M1 Air level, which is a full-ass mobile chip inside of a phone. Because this phone performs the same as this MacBook does. Not in the long term, mind you, the cooling isn't enough on the phone, but still, it boggles the mind. It really does boggle the mind. We're all walking around with supercomputers in our pockets, and all we do is just scroll reels all day. Kind of made me depressed to say that. Moving on, how are the render times then? Not that impressive, but also quite impressive. Mind you, I'm comparing to an M4 Max, basically maxed out, pun intended. 64 GB of RAM, 18 CPU cores, 40 GPU. It's basically the fastest MacBook Pro you could get up until the M5 Max was released. With that thing, I rendered out my last project, me shitting on the Canon C50 for 11 minutes, and that took 18 minutes. There's a lot of noise reduction and there's a lot of color grading. So it's a heavy project, but still 11 minutes of runtime took 18 minutes on the M4 Max. How long do you think it took for the MacBook Neo? The MacBook Neo needed 1 hour and 55 minutes. So just as a reference, my M1 Air actually took 1 hour and 22 minutes. Now, why is that? Because I've seen some benchmarks online and the M1 Air and the MacBook Neo perform about the same in most of every benchmarks. The Neo even outperforms it in CPU. Well, maybe there's some more hardware acceleration on the M1 that we do not know about. But I actually think a bit more logical is that the M1 Air can dump its heat into the chassis, because the M1 Air does get quite hot. And the Neo, as I mentioned before, it does not get hot whatsoever. Like it's pushing with its 7-watt power limit, including the whole computer, like the screen and everything else. So the chip itself, maybe 4 watts. And the M1 Air, it uses around 22 to 25 watts while rendering. So the M1 Air has a lot more power budget to play with. So that's probably why. One thing that I really appreciate with the Neo is kind of special, really. Because it has such a low power limit, you can kind of do whatever you want with the MacBook, and it's not gonna run out of battery for like 3 to 4 hours. Like, you can surf the web, it's gonna last you for 10-12 hours. You can be editing and it's slammed 100% all of the time, it's working as hard as it can. It still lasts for like 4 hours. It is not the best MacBook you can get. It is not the brightest, it is not the fastest, but it is by far the cheapest. And the thing is, because Apple controls both the hardware and the software, They can optimize it so good, and the engineers that are making the Apple Silicon chips, they really know what they're doing. So after having tried out the MacBook Neo for the past 2 days, I wouldn't really say that we get phone-level performance in a MacBook. Rather, beforehand, we've had MacBook-level performance in a phone. That is quite interesting to me. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what I do, then subscribe. If you liked this video in particular, leave a like. If there's anything you would like me to test on the MacBook Neo, then please do let me know. And if you want a kiss, then here you go.